All right, buckle up, everyone. We're about to take a deep dive into, well, choosing the right ad agency.
Because it can get pretty overwhelming, can it?
It totally can. You've got this amazing brand, a product, maybe a service, and you just know people are going to love it.
Right.
But getting it out there in front of the right people, that's where it can get kind of tricky. So this episode, this is going to be your roadmap.
It's like putting together a team.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, a team of superheroes, but for your brand. Each one with their own special power, but all working together.
Towards that same goal.
Exactly. But, and here's the thing, picking the wrong team. Missed opportunities, wasted resources maybe, but when you find that perfect match,
That's when the magic happens.
that's when your brand takes off.
We're basing this whole deep dive on a guide, actually. It's called Top 10 Questions to Ask Before Partnering with an Ad Agency.
It's a good one.
It really is, and it's packed with insider tips, stuff that most people, honestly, wouldn't even think to ask. But before we jump into all that, what are your initial thoughts when it comes to finding an agency? It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of it all, but I'm guessing you've got some priorities, right?
Oh, for sure. Top of the list, you got to find an agency that really gets your brand,
Your vision.
your values, all of it. This isn't just about some catchy slogans or flashy visuals. It's deeper. It's about a true partner, someone who understands your audience, your business goals.
What makes you unique?
Exactly.
And speaking of understanding, this guide kicks off with a question about expertise. It asks, what is your agency's core expertise and specialization? It can be tempting to go for those big name agencies, the ones that seem to do it all.
I get it.
But wouldn't it make more sense to find a team that really excels in your area?
Absolutely. You wouldn't, hire a heart surgeon to do brain surgery.
Makes sense.
Same goes for agencies. You wouldn't want an agency that specializes in, let's say, social media to handle, your print advertising.
So look for agencies with a track record in the stuff that actually matters to you.
Right, the channels and tactics that are most relevant to your industry, your goals. That's key.
I like how the guide recommends really digging into an agency's portfolio.
It's essential.
It's not just about how things look, although that's important too. It's about seeing how they've solved problems for clients like you. Have they boosted website traffic?
Increased conversions, lead generation.
All of that.
It all matters. But you know what's even more insightful? Getting a peek behind the curtain, so to speak.
Tell me more.
Ask for case studies. It's like checking references, but on a much deeper level.
What were the client's challenges? How did the agency tackle it? What did they track? And I guess most importantly, what were the results?
Exactly. Numbers.
Yeah.
Hard data. That's what you want to see. Because anyone can talk a good game. But case studies, those show you if they can walk the walk.
So we're not just talking about increased brand awareness. We're talking about actual proof. Numbers that show their impact. That's what really speaks volumes.
Agreed.
Okay, so expertise. Looking at those case studies.
Yeah.
But what about all those shiny metrics that everyone loves to throw around? Likes, shares, retweets.
Oh, yeah.
Those are great for the ego, right? But do they actually move the needle? That's the question. And this guide gets to the heart of it with question number 3. How do you measure and report campaign success?
Now we're talking. Because
What?
vanity metrics, those can be super deceiving.
They can.
You need an agency that goes beyond those surface level things
Yeah.
and digs into the metrics that are tied to your business objectives.
Yeah.
Leads, sales conversions, even customer lifetime value. They should be able to tell you exactly how they'll track progress, show you the return on your investment. No smoke and mirrors.
So there needs to be a clear method behind their measurement approach. It can't just be a bunch of random numbers thrown together.
Exactly. Think of it like a scientific experiment. You've got your hypothesis,
Yeah.
your control group,
Right.
and a way to measure those variables.
Right.
And the agency. They should be able to explain their whole approach in a way that makes sense, transparent. And of course, it's got to be aligned with your goals.
It's not just reporting on what happened, it's understanding why it happened and using that data to make better decisions in the future. I'm guessing that ties into adaptability, which the guide also talks about, because things change constantly.
All the-
You need an agency that can roll with the punches.
A rigid one-size-fits-all approach. That's not going to cut it. Today's world is way too dynamic.
It's true.
The agency has got to be willing to adjust their strategies based on data,
Yeah.
feedback, always iterating, optimizing, making sure they're getting the best results.
Which brings me to another point. Communication. You need an agency that's proactive, responsive, keeps you in the loop. And this leads perfectly into question number 4. Who will be the primary point of contact for our account. I don't know about you, but I've had those experiences where I'm getting passed around from person to person.
No, it's the worst.
It's a nightmare.
Like trying to build a house with a team of contractors who don't talk to each other. Chaos.
Total chaos. So having that dedicated point of contact, it's crucial.
Absolutely. That person is your advocate, your translator, your go-to source for everything. They should be totally involved in your project, understand all the nuances, and of course, they've got to be able to communicate.
With you, with the rest of the team.
Right. It's like having a partner in crime.
Someone who's invested in your success, guiding you through the whole process.
Exactly.
Speaking of process, the guide also highlights the importance of flexibility. How flexible are you in adapting to changes or feedback?
Such a good question.
It really is, because it speaks to the agency's willingness to collaborate, to evolve.
You've got to be able to roll with the punches in this industry. Things change fast.
Yeah.
Unexpected challenges pop up. An agency that's stuck in their ways, resistant to feedback, that's a liability.
Imagine planning a road trip and refusing to deviate from the route, even if there's an incredible scenic detour or a fantastic little diner along the way. You've got to be open,
I love that.
willing to adjust course when it makes sense.
It speaks to that growth mindset. An agency should be learning all the time, improving, adapting. They should be open to feedback from you, from the data, because the goal is to get those amazing results.
Okay. We've talked expertise, case studies, measuring success, communication, and flexibility.
That's a lot.
It is a lot to consider. But there's one more thing, a crucial aspect we need to address before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, and that's money. Question number 6 gets right to it. What is your pricing model?
Pricing, transparency, it's everything.
It really is.
You need to know how the agency structures their fees. What are you actually paying for? Hourly rates, project fees, retainers. Are there hidden costs, things that could inflate the final bill?
It's like going to a restaurant and not knowing if the prices include tax and tip. Could be a bad surprise later.
Right, and it's not even just about the cost, it's about understanding the value. What are you getting for your investment? The agency should be able to lay it all out. The scope of work, deliverables, expected outcomes.
All tied to that pricing model.
Exactly.
So it's not just about getting the cheapest option, it's about the best value. Making sure the agency's pricing is in line with your goals, your expectations.
It's a partnership. You need that clear communication understanding right from the beginning.
Absolutely. It's about finding a partner who's in it for your success and is totally transparent about how they're going to help you get there.
And that's just the first step.
There's more.
So much more. We've got lots to cover. So let's dive into some other, well, crucial questions you need to ask before you make that final decision.
All right, so we've talked about the big stuff like expertise and measuring success and even pricing, but what about red flags?
Ooh, good point.
Right, those little warning signs, those gut feelings that make you think twice about partnering with an agency. Those subtle things you might be tempted to ignore.
It's like when you're buying a house. You walk in, it's beautiful, everything's staged perfectly, but then there's this smell in the basement.
Yeah.
A little musty. You try to ignore it, but you know there could be a problem.
Lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly.
So, in the agency world, what are some of those musty smells? I know we talked about communication, but what are some signs that an agency might not be the best fit in terms of like their style, how transparent they are?
One of the biggest red flags.
Yeah.
When what they're promising doesn't match up with what they actually deliver.
I see.
You might be blown away by their presentation, but then you look at their case studies and it's like, wait a minute.
Doesn't add up.
Exactly. It's like someone telling you they're a marathon runner, but they get winded going up the stairs.
So it's not just about checking if they have case studies, it's about really looking at them. Do they back up what the agency is claiming?
Right. And transparency is key, especially with things like pricing and conflicts of interest. If an agency gets all vague about their fees, or they hesitate when you ask about potential conflicts,
That's not a good sign.
not at all. It could mean they're not putting your best interests first.
The guide mentions this question. How do you handle conflicts of interest with other clients? You know, agencies work with multiple clients. It's just the nature of the business. But how do they make sure that one client's strategy isn't benefiting a competitor? What about protecting confidential information?
All important questions. Any good agency will have systems in place to handle that. Separate teams, maybe, so information stays siloed. Confidentiality agreements, of course. They should be able to explain it all clearly, assure you that your brand is protected.
It's like having ethical walls within the agency. No accidental crossover.
Exactly. You don't want your secrets spilling out to the competition.
Let's talk about another red flag. This one's a bit more subtle. The agency that seems stuck in the past.
Oh, yeah.
They might have a great track record, but they're still talking about tactics that were popular 5 years ago.
Like a chef who refuses to use any ingredients invented after 1995. Their food might be good, but is exciting.
Not really pushing the boundaries.
Yep.
So how can you tell if an agency is truly on the cutting edge? Are there questions you can ask to see how committed they are to innovation, to staying ahead of the curve?
Absolutely. Ask about professional development. Do they encourage their team to go to conferences, take courses, experiment with new tools? Is there a culture of learning, of sharing knowledge?
The guide also suggests asking about their approach to measuring success. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth repeating in the context of red flags. If an agency is obsessed with those vanity metrics and they can't explain how they'll actually track your progress, that's a problem.
It's like measuring the success of a weight loss program just by how many pounds you lose. You're not looking at the whole picture.
So it's about understanding the context, the nuances behind the numbers.
Exactly.
What are some other red flags you've seen? Are there certain personality clashes or maybe even cultural mismatches that can be a sign of trouble?
You know, one thing I always watch out for is a lack of enthusiasm. If the agency team doesn't seem excited about your brand, about working with you,
It's a bad sign.
it is. It's like going on a date with someone who's just not that into you.
You deserve better. You deserve someone who's thrilled to be there.
Someone who really believes in your brand and wants to see you succeed.
That's the kind of energy you're looking for. It's like that feeling when you walk into a store and you just know you're going to find something amazing. You can just feel it.
And on that note, I think it's the perfect time to move on to the next part of our discussion, all about finding an agency that's a good cultural fit.
Yes. It's not just about their skills and experience. It's about finding a team that gets you, that vibes with your brand's personality. All right, so we've covered a lot. Expertise, those red flags, communication, transparency. But now, let's talk about something that's often overlooked.
What's that?
Finding an agency that's a good cultural fit.
Ah, yes. Super important.
It's about those intangible qualities.
Right.
The stuff that goes beyond just skills and experience. Finding a team that really vibes with your brand's personality, understands your vision.
It's like putting a band together.
Yeah.
You could have the most talented musicians in the world.
Right. The best of the best.
But if they don't mesh well together, if their styles clash, the music's going to suffer. You need that synergy, that shared energy.
To create something special.
Exactly.
So how do you even assess an agency's vibe? You can't just ask them if they're cool.
You can't, can you? It's more about reading between the lines, picking up on those cues.
Subtle stuff.
Right. You could ask about their team dynamics, their work environment. Do they collaborate well? Is there open communication? How do they handle feedback? Brainstorming.
It's almost like asking, what's it like to hang out with you guys? Because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them.
That's true. You want to make sure there's good rapport, that you can actually enjoy working together.
And it's not just about being like fun or whatever. It's more about shared values.
Alignment with your brand's identity.
Mhm.
If your brand is all about innovation, pushing boundaries, you want an agency that gets that.
And if you're more traditional, value structure.
Then your agency should reflect that. They need to be on the same page.
I like this tip from the guide. Ask about their passions outside of work.
Oh, that's interesting.
It seems kind of random, but I think it gets to who they are as people. What are they excited about? What makes them tick?
It's a way to break the ice, for sure. And it might reveal some shared interests, unexpected connections. That can make the relationship even stronger.
Speaking of connection, the guide also says to check out the agency's social media.
Makes sense.
What are they putting out there? Does it fit with your brand's voice, the aesthetic? Do they seem like a team you'd want to collaborate with?
It's a window into their world. You know, how they present themselves, how they engage with their audience.
It shows their creativity, too.
Yeah.
Are they pushing boundaries, experimenting with new stuff, having fun? Because if their social media is boring...
Chances are their marketing is too.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, you got to trust your gut.
Yeah.
When you meet with an agency, pay attention to how you feel. Do they inspire you? Do you feel comfortable? Do they seem genuinely interested in what you're doing?
It's like when you walk into a store and you just know you're going to find something awesome. That feeling.
That's what you're looking for. And if something feels off, even if you can't explain it, don't ignore it. Keep looking until you find an agency that feels right, a true partner.
So we've talked about it a lot in this deep dive. Expertise, contracts, cultural fit, that gut feeling. But the main takeaway, finding the right ad agency, it's an investment. in your brand's future, it's about more than just skills. It's about finding a team that shares your values, understands your brand on a deeper level.
It's that perfect blend of strategy and creativity, data and intuition, logic and, well, a little bit of magic. You're looking for someone who can help you tell your story in a way that really connects and gets results.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of ad agencies. Hopefully you're feeling ready to go out there and find that perfect match, because it's out there.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Until next time.